Hi. Hi. Wait. Come here. Come here. Hi. This is Toothless. Hey, Toothless. All right. Hey guys, how are you doing tonight? So guys, my name is Troy. I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. And what I'm going to be talking about is something that affects most of us. In fact, what I'm going to be sharing affects 93% of us, if you can believe that. And so I'm talking about insulin resistance. It's a scary topic. It affects a lot of people. 9 out of 10 people have this. And the sad part is that most people don't even know that they have it. But before I really get started, I would love to know where you guys are tuning in from tonight. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could drop your location, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I always love learning more about where people are located. And folks, if you are struggling with your health right now, this information could change your life. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this, share the live with them so that they can hop on, they can listen, they can ask questions, okay? I'm going to share some personal things with you, and I want you guys to know that I had insulin resistance so bad that it nearly cost me everything. And I'm so grateful to know what I know now, because I can share this and make a positive impact in other people's lives. And folks, right, as Solomon said in the Bible, in all your gaining, gain understanding. And let me tell you, when you understand insulin, it changes everything. When you understand insulin resistance, it'll change your life. It changed mine. Now, many of us don't realize that insulin resistance is at the root cause of so many health issues like PCOS, infertility, high blood pressure, even non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And for those of you, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, right? Fatty liver, right? Before 1980, people that had fatty liver, these were people who drank alcohol. And now they're diagnosing 3-year-olds with what is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Folks, this is the reason that I get on here every day. I wish that I knew this even 8 years ago. My dad would still be here. And so, Miji, thank you for hopping on. I appreciate that. And so, understanding and reversing this can address so many symptoms of chronic diseases that we often treat separately. So let's dive into this together, okay? Now, whether you are following me or this is your first time, welcome to my live, okay? And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. I literally almost lost my life a couple different times. I struggled with insulin resistance. This is something that I battled with for most of my life. And the crazy thing is that this is a condition that affects 93% of people in the United States. The scary part is most people don't even know that they have it because it is rarely tested for, but it happens to be a major driver of heart disease, which is the leading cause of death worldwide. Now, here's the deal. If you want to make a big impact in business or in life, you've got to be able to solve a major problem. And right now, the biggest problem in the world is insulin resistance, right? And when you understand what it is, and most importantly, what you can do to fix it, everything changes. Okay. And so, my hope and my prayer tonight is to give you just a little synopsis on what insulin resistance is. Okay. And if what I share resonates with you, feel free to connect with me. Would love to help you in any way that I possibly can. I'm on a mission, folks, to share everything that I've learned so that I can help as many people as I possibly can. And if insulin resistance is something that you haven't heard of yet, I encourage you to Google it or do some research, because this is going to be a hot health topic for years to come. But Don, thank you for hopping on. Dr. Marla, thank you for being on. So, folks, why is it that you and I get sick? And Eunice, thank you so much for hopping on. Dr. Marla, thank you. I want to ask a question. Why do we get sick? Okay, I want you to think about this. Why is diabetes, heart disease, obesity, fatty liver, dementia, and autoimmune issues exploding today when our grandparents did not have to deal with this at the same rate that you and I are? Jose Sanchez, thank you for being on. Okay. Folks, this is not a genetics problem. It is a metabolic problem. Now, there's a couple books that I recommend, okay? And one of them is by Dr. Robert Lustig. He wrote Metabolical. He is a nutrition genius, okay? He is absolutely a nutrition genius. And you know, what's interesting is that this doctor says that the number one fast food restaurant in the world is our public schools food system, right? And T, not sure what your name is, but it looks like it's T. You know, what I love about insulin resistance is that when you improve insulin sensitivity, right, and when you get your insulin under control, it changes everything. So absolutely. Okay. The other book is Why We Get Sick by Dr. Benjamin Bickman. He is a professor at BYU. And Frank DeMeo, thank you for hopping on. Okay. Folks, this is why I love getting on here. And Terry Miller, I appreciate. Thank you for that, Terry. Okay. So I want you guys to understand what insulin resistance means. Okay. Insulin resistance means that your cells stop responding to insulin properly. Sugar stays high, insulin stays high. And what happens is that your body continues to store FAT. How many of you have inflammation? How many of you have a condition that ends in itis, right? When you think of itis like arthritis, bursitis, colitis, pancreatitis, tendinitis, right? There's a lot of things that are all caused by insulin resistance. So here's one book, okay, Why We Get Sick, okay? This was written by Dr. Benjamin Bickman, okay? He's a leading scientist in the world when it comes to insulin resistance, okay? The second book, okay, is Metabolical. Okay, Metabolical, Dr. Robert Lustig, he's a nutrition genius, really. Okay, he's super smart. Okay. But the point I want to make is that if we become insulin resistant, the problem is chronically high insulin all day, every day. Okay. If insulin is high all the time, folks, your body is always in storage mode. Okay. The reality is that if we want to fix and repair our body, repair our cells and things like that, we've got to get our insulin under control. But I want you guys to understand that treating symptoms without fixing the root cause, which is insulin, is like mopping the floor while the faucet is still running. Does that make sense? Okay. I want you guys to understand that medications can be helpful but most medications don't fix insulin resistance. They treat the symptoms. That's what they do. Okay. And they manage numbers while the root problem keeps progressing. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you something that will most likely frustrate a lot of you. When you go to a doctor and your cholesterol is too high, what is it that your doctor prescribes? Does anybody want to put that in the chat? They usually prescribe a drug called a statin. And there's over 1 billion people around the world that happen to be on a statin. Now, maybe you've been told that statins are the only reliable way to lower your cholesterol. And I want you guys to understand that that is not true. Okay. In fact, there was a fiber, okay, that was created by Rexall drugs. How many of you remember Rexall? Some of you might have grandparents that used to work there, okay, when they were kids. Rexall drugs used to be the biggest drugstore in the world. And way back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, these doctors and scientists came out with a blend of plant-based fibers, and they said it was going to change the world. And so they put 4 different patents on it to make sure that nobody could copy it. And we have that today, okay? It used to be called BIOS Life. It is now called Balance, okay? But what I love is that every meal, every single day, I take this fiber before my biggest meal, okay? And what I love is that it helps protect my stomach. It slows down the absorption of the sugar and the carbs from the foods that we might eat, okay? But I want you guys to understand that if you have a desire to improve your health and maybe improve it to the point to where you're not relying on medications, then this live is for you, okay? And if any of you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Feel free to message me, with tools or reset, and I'm happy to share what it is that I do. Now, 93% of people have this, okay? And far too often, when we go to a doctor, our doctors diagnose and treat these symptoms. They don't fix the root cause. I want to change that tonight. My hope and my prayer is that what I share with you helps you to avoid the same mistakes that I've made. Think about your family reunion, folks. How many of your loved ones face these health challenges? And my question to each and every one of you that's listening, if you had a solution to insulin resistance, whose life could you change? What impact do you think you can make? Now, I want to share something. Here's the part that nobody wants to tell you, right? If you walk into a doctor's office with IBS and maybe you've got migraines and cholesterol issues, and you go to 3 different doctors, you're going to pay 3 different copays, and you're walking out with at least 3 different medications, and not one of them touches the real root cause. What they're doing is managing the numbers. They're masking the symptoms. But the moment you stop those, guess what happens? The symptoms come right back. Now, I want you to imagine this. What if instead of chasing the symptoms, we tackled the one thing that's causing them all? That would make the most sense, right? But unfortunately, that is what is not happening in our healthcare system. So why are we all struggling with this? And I want you guys to think about your own health as I talk, okay? Are you dealing with constant fatigue? Are you carrying some extra weight that you can't lose no matter what? Migraines, cravings, right? You've got the high blood pressure, you've got the cholesterol issues, you've got all of this. Maybe even fertility problems. Or maybe you've got things like psoriasis or eczema or kidney stones, okay? I'm going to dive into all of that tonight. And share what you're dealing with. Feel free to put in the chat what you might be dealing with, and let me know if any of these sound familiar to you, okay? And T, a great thing is to continue to work with your doctor, right? Because your doctor can look at your labs and your numbers. The big issue, though, is that most doctors are not talking about insulin resistance, which is the root cause behind a lot of these issues. See, no one talks about it. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about sharing this information with each and every one of you, because you could have symptoms from insulin resistance and never even know. The good news, though, folks, is that you don't need meds or extreme diets to fix it. And I'm going to share some simple things that you can start doing from the comfort of your house that can help you to improve insulin sensitivity. Okay. So whether you're dealing with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes or weight issues or anything else, okay, the two things I'm going to teach you and the tool that I've been using, okay, is completely changing lives. And this is why I get on here. Okay. So let's talk about insulin for a second. And Milo Gut, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. And T, that's a great idea, right? When you go, if you can, have your doctor check your fasting insulin levels. Fasting insulin, okay? That's a test that you're going to want to get done, okay? So let's talk about insulin for a second. Insulin is a hormone that acts like a key to open up our cells so that our cells can use the energy from the food that you and I have just eaten, okay? That's what happens when we eat food, especially sugar and carbs, spikes your blood sugar, that goes up, and your body releases a hormone called insulin. Insulin's job is to bring your blood sugar back down. That's basic biology. The problem, though, is that most of you that are watching this live are eating from the time that you wake up to the time you go to bed. How many of you eat all day? And be honest with yourself, right? How many of us were taught to have 3 meals a day and a snack 2 to 3 times throughout the day? And how many of you live up to that? Because see, every single time we take a bite, even if it's just a grape, I used to think that eating grapes was a healthy snack, right? There's no such thing as a healthy snack. When we have something like a grape or, food and snacks and things like that, what happens is that you're spiking your blood sugar, okay? And depending on what it is, you could blow up your blood sugar like a roller coaster, okay? How many of us were taught that breakfast was the most important meal of the day? And I think by now, most of us realize that that was just a marketing tactic to sell more cereal and to sell more bagels. Folks, there's only 2 times in your life where you want to be insulin resistant, and that's puberty and pregnancy. Because it helps you grow during those stages. But outside of that, folks, too much insulin in your body becomes a major problem, okay? This is why it's so important. Now, why is this so relevant today? It's relevant today because more than half of our country has prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. And chronic conditions like obesity, cardiovascular disease, and autoimmune issues, they're skyrocketing. But it's not just physical health, folks. Infertility, PCOS, erectile dysfunction, mental health issues like anxiety, they're all linked to insulin resistance. And what's frustrating is that we're often given medications for each symptom, but they don't fix the root cause, which is insulin resistance. So let's change that tonight. And like I said, if you're struggling with health issues like kidney disease, or you've been recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or maybe you've lived with this for years, okay? Maybe you're wondering when it's going to end, okay? I'm here to help, okay? I offer a natural approach that serves as an alternative to what you might already be doing, okay? If you have a doctor that you trust, okay? Especially if you have a doctor that is talking to you about insulin resistance, hold on to that doctor, because the sad reality is that most doctors are not talking about insulin resistance. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I do is I help with a natural alternative, okay? How many of you know what insulin resistance is? Let's talk about some of the symptoms, right? Skin issues, skin tags, psoriasis, eczema, okay? Adult acne, okay? These are things that a lot of us unfortunately have. What about high blood pressure and high cholesterol? What about excess belly FAT, right? How many of you feel like everything you're doing, you still can't lose that excess weight, okay? How many of you feel like no matter what you do, you just keep taking 2 steps backwards, okay? I felt like that, and number one, you're not alone, okay? There's a lot of people that unfortunately feel in that boat. But we're seeing rising rates of obesity and diabetes and cardiovascular disease, autoimmune conditions. It almost seems that everyone I come in contact with is affected by these issues. So let's talk about the solutions. The first step is understanding your symptoms and connecting them to the root cause. Because once you do that, folks, you're going to start finding real solutions. Okay? T, thank you. Eczema, losing weight, it's hard, right? Gaining muscle is hard too, especially depending on your age and your sex, right? So, folks, if any of these symptoms resonate with you, please type a 1 in the chat. Okay, I'm going to go through some of these pretty quick, but skin issues, right? I talked about that. Stubborn weight, right? The visceral fat, the subcutaneous fat, the two different, right? One is the jiggly fat, the other is the really hard, dense that surrounds your organs. Okay? Until you manage your insulin, losing that belly fat is going to be really tough. Okay? What about high blood pressure and high cholesterol? These are both linked to insulin resistance. But guess what your doctor is likely to do? Put you on meds. Rarely do they ever talk about fixing the root cause so that your blood pressure and your cholesterol can normalize naturally. Now, what about migraines? Okay, I had them for 23 years. What about aches and pains? Most of us are getting older, right? We just kind of chalk up our health conditions to the fact that we're getting older. What about autoimmune conditions like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or Crohn's disease or Hashimoto's? Okay. What about PCOS, which happens to be the leading cause of infertility for women? What about erectile dysfunction, low testosterone? And no, I'm not talking about guys in their 60s. I'm talking about guys in their 20s. What about anxiety, depression? What about, low progesterone, estrogen, right? What about sleep apnea? How many of you struggle to sleep through the night? How many of you have frequent urination? Okay, all of these things are symbols and symptoms that you may have insulin resistance. Hypoglycemia. Some of you have low blood sugar. So what do? We eat. We feel the need to eat constantly. Each one of those things that I just mentioned is caused by insulin resistance. Now, how many of you know what type 3 diabetes is? If you know what type 3 diabetes is, put that in the chat. Okay? It's insulin resistance in the brain of an adult, by the way. Okay? Too much sugar in the brain of a child leads to ADHD. And folks, at the end of the day, if you have been diagnosed with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, that's a huge red flag. But here's the thing. These symptoms aren't just normal aging, okay? They're signals from your body that something's off. And insulin resistance could be the culprit. If you are diabetic, ladies and gentlemen, you have an 81% increased risk of developing Alzheimer's, and you have an 80% increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease or having a heart attack or stroke. And if any of these sound familiar, you're not alone, okay? The great news is I have helped people improve their insulin sensitivity every single day. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people. So let's dive into insulin a little bit more, okay? I want you to think of it like a fire that is burning out of control in your body, okay? Just like how the smoke signals that there is a fire, all of these symptoms that you have are caused by insulin resistance. I want you to think of those symptoms as the smoke. And when you and I focus on extinguishing the fire, right, we are addressing the root cause, right? The smoke or the symptoms will fade away, okay? But if you are just going to the doctor, and many people are ending up with prescriptions for all sorts of things, okay? But it's not fixing the root problem, okay? It's only letting the problem grow stronger. So I want you guys to think about this. I want you guys to understand that it's very crucial to listen to your body's warning signals, much like you would respond to a flashing check engine light in your car. We can choose to ignore the warnings, but eventually you're going to face bigger issues, okay? So how do we manage the excess insulin in our bodies? And I mentioned it a few minutes ago, the major contributor to this is our habit of eating constantly throughout the day. Most of you and I were taught to eat all day long. We were taught to snack all day long, to craze energy drinks and snacks and coffee, right? And if that's you, right, this eating pattern has become completely ingrained in our routines. But the reality is that very few people are in perfect health. Now, while we might be living longer, folks, it's not just about longevity, but it's about how good we feel as we age. Okay? And Chris, I don't know if you can see this, okay? Feel free, okay? Any one of you is able to message the word tools or reset, okay? And I'm happy, and I will respond. And Chris, let me know if you hope. I'm sure that you guys can see that. I've made it really big so that you can see that. But how many of you deal with a belly fat? How many of you have, unexplained weight gain, or you're tired all the time? Okay. How many of us are increased hunger, right? We're craving sweets or carbs. Frequent urination. Okay. Memory loss. We're moody, right? We're irritable all the time. Anxiety, depression. All of these things that you see in this box up here are all they're caused by insulin resistance. And at the end of the day, you can improve your health. And this is why I get on here and teach you this. Okay. So, like I said, if you have a doctor that is talking to you about insulin resistance, hold on to them. Because the sad reality is that most healthcare professionals, they're not addressing it, even though it's the root cause of so many health issues, okay, that we're facing today. This is why I'm here. Okay. So, and I want to thank everybody who is tapping the screen. Thank you to those that have followed me. And Chris, yes. Okay. Please do, and I will respond, and I'm happy to send you exactly what it is that you need. Okay. Yes, Chris. Yep. So, folks, if you're ready for a change, okay, what I teach people and what I show people is a natural alternative that works with your biology and not against it. And Bondo, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. Okay. What I use, okay, I've been using this for a couple years. Okay. It has been around for over 30 years, and hardly anybody even knows about it. Because at the end of the day, we traditionally treat our symptoms. We're not trying to fix the root cause. Does that make sense? I hope what I'm sharing is helping you to just get a synopsis on what insulin resistance is. Okay. So, and by the way, if you guys decide to use what it is that I use, it comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not seeing results, no worries. Just get your money back. There's nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, folks, we are seeing rising rates in childhood obesity, osteoarthritis, dementia, migraines, PCOS, fatty liver disease. 25% of the kids in the United States have fatty liver, and even 3-year-olds are being diagnosed. How is this happening, folks? It's time that we connect the dots. Now, let's talk about sleep apnea for a second. Chris, kids absolutely love this. Let's talk about something, okay? Did you know that sleep apnea is often tied to weight? Now, when you lose weight, a lot of the breathing issues that people have can improve too, right? I've seen people who've dropped weight and who have experienced better breathing, right? They've experienced lower blood pressure. They've experienced no more acid reflux. I had that for a really long time. This is huge, folks. And Malekta, I'm not sure how you say that, but thank you so much for sharing this. I appreciate that. Okay. Folks, too often we are given medications instead of addressing the root cause. I look at my 85-year-old mom. She's on a laundry list of meds, and some of them are from a side effect of another drug. So it all comes down to insulin in our body. We've got way too much insulin in our bodies. And what happens is that your cells become resistant to it. So the question is, how do we control this? Okay, there's 2 things that I teach, really 3. Fasting, fiber, and making sure that you have the right tools. This is the tools that I use, and I use this every day. Okay. Folks, I don't go a day without it. I carry it in my car, my bag, my backpack. It's in my house. I share it everywhere I go because the bottom line, every single day, I want to make a difference in somebody's life. Some of you know my story. Back in November of 2014, I donated a kidney to my sister's husband, and I'm super grateful for that. But it was 7 years later when I was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney disease. And my nephrologist said, Troy, you need to lose some weight. You need to change your diet. And if you don't make any of these changes, you're going to end up on dialysis. And that scared me because I've always been healthy. It was literally 2.5 years after I was diagnosed where I was taught what insulin resistance, and I was taught this information from a friend of mine who used to be a former rocket scientist at Raytheon. Her husband and I were financial advisors together for a long time. And she completely reached out to me out of the blue, and she shared something that has forever changed my life. I believe that God puts people in the right places at the right time. And I'm grateful that I was open and willing to learn what she shared with me, because within 5 months of learning about insulin resistance and using the tool that she was using, right, when I went back to my nephrologist, he said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Lost weight. Migraine headaches of 23 years went away in the first week. Acid reflux, brain fog, anxiety, depression, sleep apnea, all of these things started to improve. Now, this is how easy this is to use this, right? When I wake up first thing in the morning, I mix this with water and I sip on it, okay? Now, I sip on it all day, okay? But I sip on it whenever I'm not eating, okay? So when I'm fasting, I'll sip on this, and it just shuts the food noise off. It actually allows me to go longer periods of time without thinking about food. Okay. So I'll have that first thing in the morning. And then after lunch, I'll have lunch as normal, and I'll have my second one. Okay. And I'll sip on it in the afternoon. And it helps me to just not be craving snacks in the afternoon. And then, of course, before my biggest meal, which for me is usually dinner, I'm going to mix this with about 8 ounces of cold water, and I'm going to shake it vigorously, and I'm going to chug it down. But this is what it looks like on a daily basis: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And that's kind of the order in which I use that. Now, one of the reasons why I talk about fasting is because it is the quickest way to regulate your insulin. Fasting is powerful, folks. Okay. Fasting is not anything new, right? Even the Bible talks about the healing and rejuvenation, but fasting is great. Fasting allows your body to just get a break from insulin. It allows your cells to start repairing itself. The key is not constantly snacking or grazing. And that can be hard for some of us, right? Especially us foodies who love food, right? So that's step one, fasting. Step two is fiber. We want to make sure that we start to increase our fiber intake, okay? Most people don't get enough fiber. And that's a really big issue, because if you want to control your insulin, you need to eat fiber with your meals. Now, I use a special blend of fiber that was created by Rexall. It's got 7 different types of fibers, and what it does is it creates a thick, viscous gel barrier in my stomach. And when this happens, it slows down the glucose spikes. And when glucose spikes slow down, your body doesn't have to release as much insulin, and this is a win-win for you, folks. We need insulin, right? Not generally, right? Insulin's not your friend, though. Insulin is the gatekeeper to our cells. It is what allows our cells to open up and allow the glucose to enter in. That's its job. The problem is most all of us, or a few of us, are eating all day long. We wonder why we can't lose the weight. We wonder why we're tired all the time, or we're hungry all the time. We start to develop these issues over a period of time. And I want you guys to understand something, that insulin resistance, folks, you can have that for decades. You can have it for years or even decades before it leads to a diabetes diagnosis. And if that's the case, this fire inside your body's been burning out of control for a really long time. I've seen more people improve their metabolic health doing these simple steps. It's the easiest thing in the world. Fasting, right? I skip breakfast. When we go longer periods of time without food or calories or sugar, we are avoiding glucose spikes, which then in turn allows us to avoid insulin spikes. This is what allows your insulin levels to come down. That's the key. We've got to get our insulin under control, and the best way to do that is by going longer periods of time without food. See, insulin is used in our body to store glucose, and our muscles serve as the largest storage depot for that. Okay? How many of us? This is why we're eating all the time. So I want to just share a couple things, and then I'm going to log off for the night. Okay? But I want you guys to understand something, that I want you to think of insulin resistance as a spectrum. Okay? Each and every one of us exists along this continuum from insulin sensitivity to insulin resistance, with type 2 diabetes marking the extreme end. Your risk of severe health condition is determined by where you fall on this line. Now, I'm not exactly sure why I'm getting restricted because I haven't said anything. Okay. I get restricted every day on this stupid platform. It's so annoying. Okay. I haven't said one thing to get restricted, but the bottom line is that we all exist along this continuum between insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance, with type 2 diabetes marking the extreme end. Your risk of severe health condition is determined by where we fall in this line. And the truth is that the more insulin resistance you are, the higher your risk is for these health issues. And the more a reality that you are going to be put on a ton of medications if you're not already. Freed Munition, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. And folks, if you're not already following me, I hope that you will. I do want you guys to understand something, is that the good news is that insulin resistance is reversible. You can improve your health. And Freed Munition, thank you for that. I appreciate you. Okay. The most effective approach combines good nutrition and regular exercise, and both are essential, right? But not everybody wants to go to the gym and work out. This is why I love talking about this, because it is the easiest thing I've ever done. It is simple, it's safe, it's natural, right? And not only that, but we are the only company in the world that has what is considered a nutraceutical that's listed in the physician's desk reference, the PDR.net. That's what doctors use to prescribe meds. And by the way, your doctor can literally recommend this as an alternative to the meds that are often prescribed. So understanding where you are on this spectrum can be life-changing, right? And this is one of the reasons why I get on here. I do these lives because I think it is important for people to understand, number one, what's going on in your body, and number two, what you can do about it. And thank you to everyone who has hit the follow button, who has shared this. I appreciate each and every one of you. Okay, here's how simple the system is that I use. I wake up in the morning and I mix a packet. Carly Y, thank you for the follow. I have a packet of chlorogenic tea. Okay, it helps me to go longer periods of time without feeling hungry. I used to struggle with this. I used to eat literally every hour, every day. But when I sip on this tea, it shuts the food noise off. It decreases my cravings, okay, for sugar and for salt. It turns the food noise off. So I'm not snacking all day. And then in the afternoon, I'll have lunch as normal. And then I sip on my second one in the afternoon. And what's great about this is that it helps me to avoid snacking in the afternoon, right? It curbs that afternoon slump, right? It curbs those cravings. You know what I'm talking about, right? We come back from lunch and 2 hours later, we're hungry again. And then, of course, right before my biggest meal of the day, I have a blend of fiber that was created by Rexall. This is why I love talking about this, folks, okay? Within 5 months of utilizing this, I improved my insulin sensitivity. This is why I teach this. Here's the thing. This protocol is simple. It's effective. It's not about a quick fix or another crash diet, okay? It's about fixing the root cause. And it's about fixing the root cause of so many health issues. So whether you're dealing with blood pressure, autoimmune conditions, sleep apnea, what it does is it reduces insulin resistance and it improves insulin sensitivity, okay? And folks, even if you don't have weight issues, okay, you could still have high blood pressure. You could still have migraines and skin tags, okay? You can have other symptoms that are all related to insulin resistance. So this isn't just a weight problem, it's a hormone problem, okay? and it affects more than just your waistline. Okay. I've worked with lots of people who didn't have weight issues, but they still struggled with these issues. Okay, it's all tied to insulin resistance. So if you think you're exempt from the problems because you're not overweight, I want you to think again. And my appeal was not approved, of course. TikTok is so, ridiculous when it comes to these stupid restrictions. It's amazing how easy you can get restricted for, and they don't even tell you why you're being restricted. That's the funny thing. They don't like people teaching the truth, and that's the problem. Okay. Folks, I want you guys to understand that I don't care how long you've been dealing with the health issues. If you're struggling and if you want to improve it, start fasting. Okay. If you don't want to purchase the system that I use, don't. Okay. Start fasting. Increase your fiber intake. Okay. These are two simple things that anybody can do. Okay. And you're going to start to notice some changes. Now, if you want to use what I've used that has helped me to reverse stage 4 kidney disease, then I would encourage you to try it. It comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If it doesn't work, you can cancel, you can get your money back. There's literally no risk. Okay? So if what you've been doing up to this point today hasn't worked for you, okay, and you haven't tried the Feel Great system, you owe it to yourself. There's zero risk. But the key is understand what's causing these health issues so that you can start finding solutions, right? You've got to get your insulin under control. The moment you do that, everything's going to change. Okay. Folks, any questions before I hop off? I'm going to jump on early tomorrow morning, but I want to be able to give myself some time to go to sleep. Chris, I know that you're asking where to get it. Folks, I'm looking to work with people who are serious about improving their health. Okay. I have a lot of people that reach out to me every single day, and unfortunately, I can't work with every single person because not every person is serious about improving their health. So if you are that person that's serious about making these changes, I would love to work with you. Okay. If you send me a message, I will respond. I respond to everyone. Okay. Any questions before I hop off? It's so frustrating to get restricted. It says my restriction was that I'm redirecting people to purchase products outside of TikTok, and perhaps I guess I have a link in my bio, right? It's so stupid that they allow you to put a link in your bio, but then they don't want you to talk about it. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. And maybe somebody else can give me some insight on how to figure out TikTok. But when TikTok allows you to add a link to your profile, but then when you share it, they don't like it. It's so stupid. It really is. Norma, thank you so much for hopping on. Folks, at the end of the day, what I teach people works. It's guaranteed to work. It's been around for over 30 years and hardly anybody knows about it because, again, when you go to a doctor, they're not trying to fix your health. They're treating it. They're managing it. They're masking your symptoms. And if you're sick and tired of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, folks, you have nothing to lose by trying the Feel Great system. The company gives you a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if it doesn't work, just cancel, get your money back. Folks, thank you so much for being on tonight. I will be on tomorrow morning, and would love to connect with a lot of you if you have an interest in learning more about how you can start sharing this with people. And if you're an entrepreneur, folks, and if you're looking for something, okay, even if you don't have a medical background, okay, I don't have a medical background. I was a pharmaceutical rep for a couple of years. But I'm looking for people that are passionate about helping other people. And tomorrow night, Thursday at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time, we have a business opportunity where you can just come listen to the call. It's on a Zoom call. You don't have to have your camera on at all, but you can just come and learn what this system is, why it's so effective, and most importantly, if you are interested in sharing this and making an impact in the world. So if that's you, please connect with me. text me opportunity and I will know to send you the details for the call tomorrow night. Okay. But for those of you that can see this, okay, this is my number to be able to connect with. Okay. Guys, God bless you. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your night, and God bless you.